Hello guys, I'm Bethany. Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm doing my June wrap up, so all the books that I read in June. And I'm gonna be honest, like if you don't want to watch this, I will forgive you if you want to like skip this wrap up, because most of the books that I read in June were arcs. And most of them aren't out yet. Like some of them came out in June or come out in a couple weeks, but a few of them don't come out till later in the year. So I feel like this wrap up might be not as fun as my usual ones, but I still wanted to film it and tell you all the books that I read in June. So I started working at the library like a little over a month ago, and that really like helps me get arcs that I might not have gotten otherwise. And then some I just like got approved for previous to this month, and it just kind of happened to where all the books I read, most of them were arcs. So let's get into it. First, I read Crossroads by Bethany Perry, which is out. It came out like early June, and this is her new series, like the first book in her new series. It's like small town cowboy vibes. It's like childhood friends to lovers, or like best friends to lovers, second chance, that kind of vibe, which is right up my alley. And I really loved the Eden series by her. So I read this and I didn't love it. I gave it 3 stars. I just feel like I didn't enjoy like the best friends to lovers like childhood aspect, but I felt like there wasn't enough of the like past timeline, because it's alternating timelines. I didn't feel like there was enough of the past timeline to make me like believe in their connection, and there was a little bit too much spice, and the end felt a little bit rushed, and I was kind of confused in areas. So I didn't love this book, but if you want a small town cowboy romance, definitely recommend, because I feel like it's easy to binge. I think I read it literally in a day, but that also could be because I just wanted to finish it. But it is very quick, very easy to read, and I just feel like the Edens is her best books. I love them. I love that series, and this also doesn't have a suspense plot, and I feel like I miss the suspense in her books. Like this didn't have that, so I was kind of disappointed in that. I definitely will be reading the second one, and I'm very excited to just see what I think of that one. Next, I reread Life's Too Short by Abby Jimenez. I read this in January of 2022, I think, and I gave it 5 stars. I loved it, and I've been kind of rereading Abby Jimenez's books, and I was just in the mood to pick this one up. I read this actually first. This is the first Abby Jimenez book I read, and then I read The Friend Zone and the Happy Ever After playlist. I don't recommend reading them in that order. I recommend reading The Friend Zone, the Happy Ever After playlist, and then Life's Too Short, because obviously that is like how they go in like timeline order. There are interconnected standalones, but you see a few of the characters from the past books in this one, which made it so much more fun the second time I read it, because I recognized those characters. Obviously the first time I read it, I didn't know those characters because I didn't read it in order. But anyways, really enjoyed this. I read it so fast. I feel like there's something about Abby Jimenez's writing where you just cannot stop reading. And this follows Vanessa, and she is like a travel YouTuber, and she ends up having to move back home because her sister like drops off her daughter like on her doorstep, so Vanessa's niece, and then she meets her next door neighbor in this apartment complex named Adrian. And I really enjoyed this, obviously because I reread it. This is definitely not one of my favorites by Abby Jimenez, but I still loved it. I love her writing, and I gave it 5 stars just based on nostalgia, because I gave it 5 stars the first time, but it didn't give me like the feeling that her other books have given me, especially the Happy Ever After playlist when I reread that, or like Yours Truly when I reread that, or Part of Your World. It didn't give me that feeling, but I still absolutely loved it and read it so fast. So if you haven't read her backlist, you definitely should. The whole series on Kindle Unlimited. So then I reread Funny Story by Emily Henry. This is the UK cover. I was getting my books off the shelf for this video, and I was like, I have to showcase my UK cover because it's beautiful. And I listened to this on audio. I was listening to it honestly like for over a month. I started like, I think in May, the beginning of May, I started listening to it, and I finished it in June, and the audio is so good. I think Julia Whalen narrates it, and she's such a good narrator, and I just love this book. It's one of my favorites of the year, and it is so good, and I love listening to it on audio. So it basically follows Miles and Daphne. If you haven't heard this book, if you're living under a rock, it follows Miles and Daphne, her fiance breaks up with her and ends up dating his like childhood best friend, and that childhood best friend was dating Miles. So Miles and Daphne end up being roommates, and it's kind of like a roommates forced proximity, roommates to lovers, friends to lovers type situation. But the summer vibes are so good, and it's set in Michigan, so just the setting is perfect, and I loved listening on audio. It was such a good time. So if you want to read this physically, if you want to listen on audio, great experience all around. One of my favorite books of the year. So I just feel like I relate to this so much, into the characters, and I love Miles and I love Daphne, and I just love this book so much. It's my favorite by Emily Henry. So okay, now we are going to get into the arcs, which I cannot believe, like some of these I cannot believe I read early. Like literally, specifically this next one, I read Lost and Lassoed by Lila Sage. If you know me, you know I love the Rebel Blue Ranch series so much, and this was my most anticipated release of 2024. I was dying for this book, and I read it in a reading vlog, so if you want to hear like more of my thoughts, you can go to that. But I didn't like give very super in-depth thoughts, but I did film a little bit of my reactions. So I gave this book 5 stars. No one is surprised. surprised. And this follows a couple characters that you see in the first two books, and I feel like we've been waiting for this couple story for so long. I wanted to say who it is in case you want to be surprised if you haven't read the series, but it was everything I was hoping for. Lila Sage's writing and her worlds, the small town, the setting, everything about it, it just feels like cozy and homey. Like I feel like I'm back home when I read her books, and that's how I felt about Lost and Lassoed. I still think Swift and Saddled is my favorite, but I absolutely love this. I literally was savoring every single page. It was so good. The romance was so good, the found family, and it's really set up the next one, which is the last one that I'm very excited about. It comes out next year, I'm assuming. It was so good. It was absolutely perfect. I can't wait to reread it. I'm so excited for the audio to come out because I definitely will be listening to that. Obviously it's not going to come out till November, but cannot wait for the release so I can listen to it on audio. Next, I read Love Unwritten by Lauren Asher. This is out, and this is the second book after Love Redesigned, and it is single dad nanny trope, and you do see these characters, or at least the male main character and his son, in the first book, Love Redesigned, and I did really enjoy this book. Like I read it pretty fast and I enjoyed my time, but I did feel like it was a tad long. Like the last couple hundred pages probably could have been 50, like it was just a little bit too long. I feel like Lauren Asher's books are very easy to read and very quick. Like I read this one and Love Redesigned so fast, and I haven't read any of her other books, but I feel like she just has that bingeable quality about her books, and I did really enjoy this, and I feel like the romance was really good, but then it just got like a little long-winded. I got kind of bored. I feel like if you do love these characters, you will love having that much time with them. Like I feel like if some of my favorite book characters of all time, if I had a book this long, I would eat it up because I love them so much, but I was just kind of bored because I didn't love them as much as some other books that I've read, and I did love Love Redesigned more. And I also think you should check trigger warnings before you read this because there are some like heavier topics discussed. I feel like I haven't seen that in reviews. Personally, for me, when I was reading it, I felt like it was heavier than Love Redesigned. So there is more emotional depth in this book, which I enjoyed. Also, the male main character is a billionaire, so he obviously can do anything and everything for the female main character, which I really loved. And also there's like a tropical setting, which I really enjoyed in this book as well. So if you read the first one, I definitely recommend reading this one, and I will be reading the next one, which I'm very excited about. Then I read Business Casual by BK Boris, and this comes out in a couple weeks on July 16th. And this is the last book in the Love Light series, which I love the Love Light series so much. I was so excited for this book, and I feel like I've been waiting on it for so long because I read Love Light Farms in like December 2022, and then I read Mixed Signals and In the Weeds, or In the Weeds and Mixed Signals, in January of 2023. So it's been a year and a half since then waiting on this book, and I loved it so much. I love BK Borison's writing. I feel like her characters are also so like well fleshed out, and like their struggles are so like real and relatable, and I felt like this was such a good ending to the series. So if you're excited for this, I feel like it's going to live up to your expectations. It is pretty spicy, but I still loved it, and I love this town, and I love these characters and the found family, and also the banter and like the tension. It was really, really good. So I loved this, loved the writing. It was just like a warm hug, you know what I mean? Also, I didn't say, but all the books that I've mentioned so far have had spice. So Love Unwritten is pretty spicy. Lost and Lassoed has a couple spicy scenes. So I don't know if I've been telling you my ratings. I gave Love Unwritten 4 stars, and then I gave Business Casual 4.5 stars. And then next I read Daydream by Hannah Grace, which is one of my most anticipated releases of the year. Oh my goodness, this is about Henry, and if you've read her first 2 books, you know who Henry is, and it just lived up to every expectation I had. I feel like Hannah Grace's writing is so like, I don't know, it's like a breath of fresh air. I love her writing. I love like the communication that she has in her books with her characters. Like there's no miscommunication. It is done so well. The relationships are so sweet. This is very much friends to lovers, and I love that. And I love the female main character. She was just so sweet and soft, and I really, really liked her. I also gave this 4.5 stars. And I feel like if you are excited for Henry's book, you're really gonna enjoy this. Henry is just so funny, but also this book is just very comforting and sweet. I just had a great time reading it. So really, really enjoyed this. Next is A Novel Love Story by Ashley Poston, which is out. It came out at the end of June, and I love this book. So this is about the female main character ends up in this small town of her favorite like fictional series, which is such a fun premise. I love that, and I feel like it was just so good. I love Ashley Poston's books specifically for the magical realism, and I feel like a lot of people have been complaining about the romance in this book, but I feel like the romance was so good. But I don't read Ashley Poston's books for the romance. I read it for the magical realism, and she's so good at that. This book is also just very much a love letter to books and reading and being a reader, which I just loved so much. I feel like her books also, I just like feel like I'm diving into a world, and I'm not like reading pages on a book anymore, which I love that about her books. So I gave 4.5 stars. Really, really love this as well. I feel like all these arcs were just so good. Next, I read Nothing Like the Movies by Lynn Painter, which comes out in October. And I, first of all, cannot believe I got this arc. I'm so excited. But I was one of those people that was like, why are we getting a sequel to Better Than the Movies? Because like, obviously for us to have a sequel, they have to break up. And the end of Better Than the Movies is just so sweet. But I do think that this book was very well done. I really enjoyed it. I gave it 4.5 stars. I feel like in Better Than the Movies, the book is like a very young love, like sweet high school love, and this one it feels a lot deeper and more like tender, and I don't know how to explain it. It just feels deeper. I also think that this book reads more new adults to adult than YA. There's no spice in it, but it does read more adult. But I did really love this, and I feel like if you love Better Than the Movies, you are gonna really enjoy this. And the tension, like, it was just so good. I do think it has more of a sadder undertone than Better Than the Movies or any of Lynn Painter's other books, specifically because we just love Liz and Wes and we want them to be together. But I really, really enjoyed this book. I gave it 4.5 stars, and I'm very excited for everyone else to read it. I feel like you shouldn't be scared if you're worried about the sequel, because it's really, really good and I really enjoyed it. Next, I read The Match by Sarah Adams, which was a reread, and also I listened to the audiobook. And I read The Match back in 2022, I think, and this is one of Sarah Adams' indie books that's being traditionally published. It just came out, and the audio is so good. Like, if you want a quick audiobook to listen to, highly recommend this, and it's so sweet. And like, this book is just so sweet in general. It's about this female main character who has epilepsy. She works at this like service dog business where she sets up people with service dogs. So she has a service dog because she has epilepsy, and she meets this single dad who is getting a dog for his daughter, and it's just really sweet. And also it takes place in Charleston, South Carolina, and the narrators have a very like southern twang in the audiobook, and it's really, really good. I loved rereading it. I loved it the first time, but this is like an expanded edition, so there's like bonus scenes, revised, things like that, and it was really, really good. I gave it 4.75 stars the first time I read it, and I still stand by that. It's definitely not one of my favorites by Sarah Adams, but I just love her books, and I feel like this is perfect for the summer. A perfect, sweet, wholesome romance. It's closed door, and I just love Sarah Adams books. It just brought me so much joy every time I listened to it, and I loved it. So I'm very excited to continue to reread her indie books that are being traditionally published. They come out, another one comes out in August, and then the other two come out at the end of the year. So love this. It was really, really good. Then I read The X-Files by Jessica Joyce. This comes out in a couple weeks on July 16th. This book literally hit me in the sternum. This is a second chance romance, best friends, childhood friends to lovers, best friends to lovers situation. Jessica Joyce's writing literally is insane. I love this book so much. I gave it 5 stars, and it was so good. Like, if you read one of these books in this video this month, let it be The X-Files. Obviously Lost in Lasso isn't out yet. That's my other favorite, but you have to read this book. It's so good. It's set in California and like Napa Valley area, and the nostalgia and the way that Jessica Joyce writes, it's insane. Like, I don't know how she does it. And I also feel like usually I don't love books that are single POV because I like to have the guy's POV, but I feel like she's so good at writing, like, you know how the guy feels, and you can tell how he's kind of what he's thinking, how he's feeling, just from the female main character's point of view, which is crazy. And also this doesn't have past and present timelines, which I really, really loved. I loved that we got like little descriptions of the past, and it was done so well at the perfect times instead of like back and forth, because I feel like when you have a book with alternating timelines, you're continuing to read the book because you want to know why they broke up in the past. But in this book, you find out very quickly why they broke up in the past, and it's not a secret that you're like waiting to the end to find out. You very much know that early on, which I really loved. And I love the way that she had like the past interwoven in the story, and it was so good, so good. Like, literally this book has burrowed itself into my heart, and it will never leave because I love it so much. Oh my goodness, you need to read it. And I just love the characters, and they feel so insanely real to me, and I relate so much to both of their like struggles, and I loved it. So please read this when it comes out. It's so good. I literally couldn't stop highlighting and like taking notes in my Kindle, which I never do. Oh, it was so good. Next, the last book that I read in June was Reckless by Lauren Roberts, which is insane because this book came out yesterday on July 2nd, but I found it early at my local bookstore, and I was so excited, like beside myself. I could not believe that they had it early and they let me buy it early. But this is the second book after Powerless, so I can't say much about this book, but this is a YA fantasy trilogy, and it's like, the first one is about, it's basically a society where there's elites and ordinaries, and the elites have powers, the ordinaries do not. And the female main character has no powers, but she's like pretending to be an elite, and the male main character hunts ordinaries. So that's kind of the synopsis of the first book, and this is the second book obviously, and I really love this. I feel like it was so good. I don't think it's 5 stars. I've been like thinking on it, still processing this book and the end, but I don't think it's 5 stars just because, I don't know, I feel like I need the third book to really like solidify my ranking and my rating of this book and like how it ranks to Powerless. I don't really know, but I loved it so much. Where the series is heading, I was not expecting. Like, it was kind of crazy. And the romance in this and the banter and the tension and the writing was so good. So loved Reckless so much. I did not film me reading it because I read it so fast, but here's a few of my thoughts right here. And if you want to talk spoilers, you can DM me on Instagram and we can chat spoilers about the end and things like that. And I feel like her writing is just as good in this one as it was in the first one, and I feel like it just gets deeper in this one, and it's so good. I cannot wait for the next one, which she just announced the title, which is Fearless, and it comes out in April, and I'm so excited. So love this book. It was so good and highly recommend this trilogy. It's so easy to read, so if you're looking for like beginner and fantasy recs, definitely recommend Powerless and now Reckless, and I cannot wait for the third one to come out. So this was so good. I read it so fast. It is shorter than Powerless, but I feel like it's setting up the third one so well. So those are the books that I read in June. I hope you enjoyed this video. Hope you enjoyed seeing what I read, and hopefully next month, or this month in July, I will read a lot of books that are out and that you can read them, but a couple of these obviously do come out in July. So favorites of the month, Lost and Lassoed and the X-Files, and the X-Files comes out in 2 weeks, July 16th. Pre-order it, please read it because it's so good. So anyways, let me know what you read in June, and I think that's it. So I'll see you very soon for my next video. Bye.